all the Eastern and the Western ideas together, you become one with nature, one with the source, one with the universe. By this letting go, this emptying yourself. You just let it all go. And then you get to Jesus, who's the capstone of it all. What's up? I got an interesting one today. I've been thinking about and writing about consciousness and what that means, what that is. In the last video, I talked about how consciousness seems to be something that expands, seems to be something that is a growing perimeter, because you can say when somebody gets knocked out, they're unconscious, but then also when you learn about something, you can say, wow, I didn't know, I wasn't conscious of that before. And so you have great leaders of the past, religious leaders, who talk about expanding your consciousness. They call it enlightenment, awakening, rebirth, being born again, being blind, but now you see. And so there's a lot of this not static, but fluid idea, something that expands over time, right? And I find that to be interesting. I find that to be really interesting, honestly. So I started looking into what did these people say, right? Because if you look into like the great religious leaders of the past, no matter what they believed, they always talked about specific things. And so I figured out some of the specific things, and I wanted to go through those. So I went through a couple different guys. I went through Buddha, Lao Tzu, and Marcus Aurelius, Socrates, and Jesus himself. Those are the ones that I've gone through so far. And they all say similar things, even though there's Western and Eastern. It's very interesting. So I'll just start going through them. Buddha talks about getting rid of cravings, right? He talks of not desiring things. Desires are like an illusion. When you desire something, you don't see things for what they are. And so he talks about a letting go, like a getting rid of. And when you do that, you become enlightened because you can see things clearly. He also talks about how you should do this firsthand, that you shouldn't trust him, but you should actually experience the thing. You should go and actually experience the thing itself. So like this is don't just take a word for it, go perceive it. And so then you got Lao Tzu, also Eastern. Lao Tzu talks about emptying yourself. He talks about when you desire something, you don't see it for what it really is. Only when you empty yourself of desire can you see it for what it really is. And then he also talks about something called the way, or the source. So specifically, Lao Tzu didn't believe in like a God. He believed that there is just the creator of all things. Is not necessarily a personal being, it just is. Like he literally called it source, or the way. And so when you empty yourself, you align yourself with nature itself, and you become one with the way, or the source, or whatever. And so again, you have a letting go, you have an emptying yourself. Then you go over to Marcus Aurelius. Actually, let me start with Socrates. Then you go over to Socrates. Socrates was he was known for questioning and haggling people, right? His whole thing was he would stand in the square and he would question people who thought they knew things. If you read The Last Days of Socrates, there's a thing called the Euthyphro, and I believe it's the Euthyphro, one of the ones in The Last Day of Socrates. I think it's the Euthyphro. But he basically, this guy is going to like put his dad on trial for something, and Socrates just takes him to town. He's like, oh, you think that? What about this? Oh, you think that? What about that? And he just gets him to question himself all the way in circles, and then he starts with wanting to put his dad on trial and thinking that he's doing so for morally correct reasons, and he ends with being confused. And so that's what Socrates did. His whole thing was, I'm wiser than this guy because this guy thinks he knows. And I know that I don't know. And I know that he doesn't know, but he thinks he knows. And so it's like the ridding of thinking that you know. It's a letting go of thinking that you got it right. And understanding that you don't know everything. It's a letting go. So you got 3 guys so far that are talking about emptying yourself and letting go. Then you got Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius was always talking about like understanding what you can and can't control and ridding yourself of judgments. So what can't you control? Well, you can either accept or deny. He talked about being one with nature. He talked about he's just a man. And that he's going to forget everything and everything's going to forget him. And so the dissolution of the ego is what he was talking about. So the letting go of the ego, that looks pretty cool. The letting go of the ego and the letting go of the judgment. You let go of the judgment and you let go of the pain. Because the judgment is the subjective experience that produces negative emotion. So if you let go of the judgment, the conclusion, like Socrates, you get rid of the negative subjective experience. And you become, if you were to merge all these, all the Eastern and the Western ideas together, you become one with nature, one with the source, one with the universe. By this what? This letting go, this emptying yourself. You just let it all go. And then you get to Jesus, who's the capstone of it all. What's the point of all this? Well, the point is Jesus himself. What does Jesus say? Jesus says the kingdom is in the heart, right? The kingdom of heaven is in the heart. And the heart is like an internal thing. He also says, well, what was it? That looks so cool. He also says, I was explaining this to my wife and I forgot it then too. Gosh, come on. He says things like, if you want to save your life, you have to get rid of it. If you want to if you want to save your life, you have to get rid of it. And when you get rid of it, you will save it. So that's like an emptying of your desire, an emptying of what you want. The things that are your priority right now, they have to be put to the side to follow him. And then you can gain it all back, because God is the only thing that you can give everything to and get it back in better condition. I mean, think about like any addiction or anything that becomes like a false idol. The demand is sacrifice everything. How much do you have to sacrifice to be great? How much do you have to sacrifice to have the best business? How much do you have to sacrifice to be the best athlete, to be the best musician? And it's everything. And it takes everything from you too. Only God can give you back everything better than it was before. And so he talks about an emptying. He also talks about rebirth. He talks about being born again. To follow Christ is to leave your old ways. That's what it was, to be born again. That's what I was trying to get earlier. To be born again is to get rid of your old ways and to follow him into a new life, right? You have to renew your mind. You have to become new. He'll change your heart. You'll be a new creation. And so it's a repetition of the older ideas, but not as in like he copied them, as in like he's the fulfillment. Like all these philosophies are talking about how you have to empty yourself and let go so that you can expand your consciousness or whatever. And it's like Jesus comes in and he goes, yeah, all that's true, but that's not it. Like, I am the light. I am the way, the truth, and the life. You have to let yourself go and empty yourself. But you have to do so to follow me. If you just let go, then you're just in another delusional place. But if you do it to follow me, then you'll find life, right? You'll find truth. And it says, when you find the truth will set you free. Free from what? Free from your own illusions. Free from your own selfish desires. free from things that you want that aren't good for you. Things that, here, let me give you like a technical version of this. So we get dropped in as babies and we start making conclusions like right off the bat. So you'll have experiences, the way things feel, the way things taste, the way things smell. You'll start to go through things, and eventually you make an abstraction, you come to some sort of conclusion. This thing is good, this is bad, I accept this, I deny this as reality. And it starts really shoddy, right? You're brand new. You don't have good ways of thinking yet, but over time, you start to build a subjective reality in which you perceive the entire world. Right? Marcus Aurelius said that we color the world with, we paint the world with colors of our mind. That's what he said. And that the basic idea is that we see the world by what we believe. Believing is seeing, not seeing is believing. Seeing is believing is first, and then we see through what we believe. And that just compounds over time. So when you have people that lie, they lie, and then at first they know it's a lie, but then like later on, they believe it. They believed their own lie. And it's because when you delude reality, you start to not know what makes sense. That's why reading the Bible is the ultimate objective truth. It's the ultimate sobering. Is because when you read the Bible, it's like coming down from this delusional high that you've put yourself into on accident. Is because we make false conclusions, we make false judgments, and it leads to illusion and negative emotion. And when you read the Bible, it sobers you because it gives you proper conclusions. It connects you back with objective reality, right? And so when we think of the subjective versus the objective, you spend a lifetime of subjective conclusions without objective reality, the true source of objective reality, the way, if you want to call it, God himself, Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life, then you're going to be delusional. You're going to think things that aren't true. And that's how you get these people that spiral off into like these psychotic ways of thinking. And you're like, how did you ever get there? And it's one decision at a time, one belief at a time, one acceptance of the wrong thing at a time. They were never grounded. And so they're in space somewhere, thinking that they're the only ones with the truth. It's like Jesus is the only one with the truth. He's the only one you can listen to. He's the only one that's attached to objective reality. That's why he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? And so what is all this saying? I think the way to, you can call it whatever you want. I would just call it the Christian walk. But the way to enlightenment, or expanding your consciousness, or awakening, or going from blind to being able to see, from ignorance to wisdom, it's literally just accepting, not denying what Jesus says. That's it. And I don't mean accept, I mean accept, like right here in the heart, to repeat it over and over again in your mind and know that you can trust the Creator. And that's why they say faith, right? Faith, not knowledge. You can know things about God, but knowledge is a rationalization of the heart. Your brain reasons what your heart wants, right? So if your heart wants God, then you're going to make that make sense. And if your heart doesn't want God, then you're going to make that make sense. That's why people have been debating for years, thousands of years. They all have good arguments. You have to decide at some point. And the decision is the leap of faith. And the faith is based on the desire. What do you want? And so the aligning of God's will and our own will is the subjective with the objective, right? You have to decide the perception. You have to experience it for yourself. You have to come to a conclusion, and you have to decide what you want. And your brain is going to help you do that. And I think that if you want to see life for an objectively true thing, you have to accept Jesus, because otherwise you're gonna fall into illusions of the self, illusions of false teachers, illusions of faulty ways of thinking. And I'm not saying that like everybody's leading you down a bad road. I'm just saying they're incomplete, right? All these philosophers were onto something. Buddha was onto something. Lao-Tzu was onto something. Marcus Aurelius was onto something. Socrates and Plato, they're all onto something. Even Jordan Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson. He's definitely onto something. But it's like, at the end of the day, without Jesus, it's just incomplete. And I think, just to put in there, I think Peterson knows that. I'm not saying he doesn't know that. I'm just saying you can't just listen to these guys. You have to have, what's the point of all this? Well, the point is whatever the philosophy points at. And Jesus says, I am the way. So I just think it's really cool. So if you want to have to use philosophical, spiritual terms, Eastern terms, you could say, if you want to have a spiritual awakening, sit down in a room and pray to Jesus and say, open my eyes. Take the veil off of my eyes. And actually mean it, you know? Maybe you've never done that before. Maybe you've thought like, oh, this doesn't make sense, or I just don't want to do this. But I would highly recommend just giving it a chance, at least once. Just sit down and be open for one time, at least one time, and see what happens. You know, if nothing happens, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. But I guarantee you, if you are actually open to it and you sit down and you ask him to open your eyes at least once, something will change and you'll not go back. And so I'm going to keep writing about this stuff. It's all part of my bigger writing. I'm going through a whole bunch of stuff. Like, what does it mean to believe? What are beliefs? How do we have relationships with that? How does that change our internal and external world? What do we do? How do we treat people? Like, it's a whole thing. And this is just one step in the road. So stay tuned if you like this nerdy, philosophical stuff, religious stuff. I don't even know what do you call me? I don't know what to call me. Anyway, love the sunset. Sunrise. It's a sunrise. I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid. It's a sunrise.